それでは定刻になりましたので、
Because it is the
スタジオジ
designated
ブリ
time,
記
we
者
would
会
like
見
to
を
start
始
the
めさせてい
Studio
ただきます。
Ghibli's press
私は
conference.
スタジオジブ
My
リ社
name
長
is
星野浩二です。
Koji Hoshino, the president of Studio Ghibli. I will be serving as the MC of this press conference. We will be inviting Mr. Miyazaki and Mr. Suzuki to come onto the stage, and once they make a brief comment, we will be going on to the Q&A session, and I will be serving as the MC for the Q&A session. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Miyazaki and Mr. Suzuki onto stage. Now, Mr. Hayao Miyazaki, could you give us a brief remark?
Well, this is called the official retirement statement. I thought we don't have to say official, but we've already handed you the copy of this official retirement statement. So if you will be able to ask any questions, I am willing to answer any questions. But if I may, I know I've mentioned that I would retire many times in the past, so a lot of you may think once again. But this time I am quite serious. So now on to our producer, Mr. Suzuki, please. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. There is a big group today, and once something happens, it would always end. That's how it is. And from my perspective, rather, it does not look stylish to retire when we are in our downfall. So because we have just opened The Wind Rises, and while it is being supported by a lot of people, we've made this decision. So in that sense, I believe that it was a good timing. And again, many of you might wonder what would happen to Studio Ghibli in the future. I'm sure there are a lot of questions associated with that. And as you know, there will be Isao Takahata's Princess Kaguya's story will be opening on November the 23rd. And right now we are going through the productions, and we have been able to see the end, so we would open this film on November the 23rd. And although I will not be able to make any official announcement, but towards next summer, we right now are producing another film. So we have these two films that will be coming up. And that would conclude my message. Thank you very much. So from here, I would like to open the floor to the Q&A. We have a lot of time, so that I hope that we will be able to answer to as many questions as possible. So please raise your hand, and I would be designating the person who will be asking questions. So please raise your hand if you have any questions.
The lady over there at the back. My name is Iwamoto from Asahi Shogakusei newspaper. Based on the press on the retirement of the director, and the kids are saying thank you very much, and the kids are hoping that you will not retire yet, but I would like to receive a message from the director to the children. Well, I can't say anything that cool. If there's another opportunity, I would hope that they would watch the movies that we produced, and you might feel something, and I would like to keep my word at that point. Next question, please. Another lady at the back, please.
My name is Onda from Yomiuri newspaper. So, I've read your official retirement statement. It says that you will not be making any more feature films. Is that correct? And also, if you will be able to elaborate a little bit on what you would like to do in the future. I thought those words were very well written. It says that I am free, so I have the freedom to not do anything. But as long as I will be able to drive, I am planning on going to the studio every day. And whatever I feel like I want to do, or whatever I can do, I would like to do. But it's a time when I still need to rest and take a break, and I believe that I will be able to find something during the break. But if I make any promise, I would be breaking that. So please give us your understanding on that.
Any other question? Person at the back with the glasses. IWJ Internet Media. My name is Ishikawa. In 1984, the Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind was opened. Will you be planning to produce the sequel to this movie? No.
So next
person, the person that has a piece of paper in your hand.
My
name is Yu from KBS from Korea. In Korea, there are numerous Miyazaki fans. I'm one of them. So towards the Korean fan, would you be able to give us a message? And also, if you will be able to talk a little bit about the Zero Fighter, that is a topic that is being talked in Korea. So if you will be able to give us your comment on that as well, that would be appreciated. Once you see the film, I think you will be able to understand. So don't be fooled by words. So I hope that everyone will be able to go to the theater and enjoy the film. That's my message to the Korean audience. There are numerous viewerships in numerous countries, and we appreciate that. And at the same time, the Wind Rises motif itself, well, the backdrop of this is in the era when Japan was going into a militaristic era. So even my family and myself and the staff mentioned about that as well. And I've decided to make this film by answering to that. So if you will be able to look at the film, I believe you will be able to understand. Without viewing it once, I don't think that you will be able to have any discussion. So please pay your movie ticket money, and I hope that you will be able to go to the film, enjoy the film.
Next question. My name is Ohara from the Asahi newspaper. Mr. Takahata, in the Tale of the Princess Kaguya, I read in the magazine how you feel about the drawings of the old man, but will you be giving supervision or advising or giving ideas or writing screenplay to Studio Ghibli's future films? Do you have any ideas of being involved in that way? No.
Next question, please. Towards the very back, the lady that's wearing white. My name is Endo from the Fuji TV's Agiru TV, and this is a question for Mr. Miyazaki. You mentioned that you are serious this time. So what's different? What's the biggest difference from this time and also in the past when you mentioned about retiring? It's mentioned in this official retirement statement. It took 5 years since Ponyo to make The Wind Rises. And during that time, it's not that I continued to work. I was writing the screenplays, or sometimes I was drawing the manga as a hobby, or I was going through the short films for the Ghibli Museum. But it took 5 years. When I should think about the next film, then it will take more than 5 years because of my age. So as it says here, next time it might take 6 years or maybe even 7 years. And in 3 months' time, I would be 73 years old. And if it takes 7 years from that, then I will be turning 80. And I've met Mr. Kazutoshi Ando, who was an ex-editor-in-chief of Banquet, and he was 83 years old, but he was very intelligent still, and he was straight in the back, and I wish that I would be like that when I am 83, and that's why I said that I would like to be able to work for another 10 years. And I hope that I will be able to continue to do so, but I don't think I will be able to work in an extension of what I have been able to do in the past. So I feel now that my days of feature film is done. If I say that I want to, it would almost be like an old man saying something foolish.
いらっしゃいますか。じゃあその男性の方。
My name is Oda from Weekly Spa. The retirement. What was the timing of agreeing on the retirement with Mr. Suzuki, and what kind of dialogue did you have with Mr. Suzuki at that time? I don't really exactly remember. I think I said I can't do it anymore to Mr. Suzuki, and Suzuki-san said, "Oh, really?" But I've done that many times actually, so I don't know if Mr. Suzuki trusted me when I said that. But when we established Ghibli, it is true that I never had the intention of doing it so long. So many times we've already had discussions many times about quitting or retiring between the two. So this time, the next film may take another 7 years, and I think Mr. Suzuki felt that as a reality. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I feel. Myself, I don't remember accurately, but there was this initial copy of The Wind Rises on June 19th, and I think he talked to me right after that from Mr. Miyazaki when he brought that theme up. In many films in the past, he always said that this is going to be my final film. But I don't exactly remember the exact words he used, but I had to feel that he was serious this time, because I personally, when you count from Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, it's the 30th anniversary since then, and during that course of time, there are a lot of things happening when operating Studio Ghibli. I mean, we had a lot of discussions saying that we shouldn't be doing anymore, or we should be quitting. And this time, for 30 years, I think we always had the tension. And this tension, this string of tension had moved a little bit when Mr. Miyazaki brought this theme up. I kind of felt relieved in a way. So, when I was young, I might have convinced him or stopped him, but in my feeling, I truly felt that thanking him for his hard work. Well, I have to go on and open up the next movie, The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, and this string of tension was almost broken, but I need to retie that and go back to work. Before we announce this to you, we had a discussion of when and how we should be presenting this news to you. Before we made this announcement to you, what we had to say is that we need to open this news to the staff, to the people who are working at the studio. And once we do that, we have to decide when we need to disclose this to the press. And there was the opening of The Wind Rises. If we announce the fact that he was retiring right after the opening of the movie, then that would make things complicated. So we decided that we should release the new movie, The Wind Rises, and once it settled down on August 5th, we made the announcement to the employees of the studio. And once the movie opening of the movie had settled, we thought that we can announce this to the press. And we thought about it thoroughly, and we came to the decision that we should open this news to the public in early September.
My name is Ko from the Doi newspaper in Taiwan, and a lot of the Taiwanese tourists, when they come to Japan, would always be visiting the Ghibli Museum. They say that it is a must destination as a tourist. So the Taiwanese fan is saddened that you would be retiring. So after the retirement, you would have a lot of time. So are you thinking of going abroad so that you will be able to communicate with the fans overseas? So do you have any plan for that? The Ghibli Museum's exhibition, etc. I would like to be involved in that from now on as well. It might be on a volunteer basis, but I would like to participate in that. Maybe I myself will be exhibited at the museum, so I think it would be best if you will be able to come visit the museum. We would appreciate that.
では、その髪の長い女性の方ですかね。
My name is Sakaguchi from magazine Aira. I have a question to Mr. Suzuki. When you were shooting The Wind Rises, is there any case where you expected that this was going to be the final film? I mean, did you have this intention that you didn't want to make Ponyo the last movie? And for Mr. Miyazaki, making this your last film, if there's any sense that you were particular about in making this a last film. Well, this film, The Wind Rises, you asked the question whether I expected this to be the last film. Well, I have been interacting with Mr. Miyazaki, and based on his personality, what I always thought was that he would continue making films. I always thought that he would continue making films, and what I mean is that even until he dies, right before he goes away, passes away, I always thought that he would continue making film. Of course, you can't do everything perfectly, but I thought he would always be involved in making films. But on the other hand, Mr. Miyazaki, I've known him for 35 years and always felt this way, but when he wants to do something else, he makes a decision and he makes a declaration to everyone else. So maybe by making this his last film, and he would declare that this is the last film and starts doing something else. So I thought these two were the two directions that he may be taking. And we made this film, The Wind Rises, and it was completed and it was released. And right after that, he brought this news up. So that was within my expectations. So that's why I was able to accept that naturally. Well, I was really determined about making the film. I was not thinking about what I would do after that. I was always wondering whether this was worth making this film. That was more of a pressure to me. That was a bigger issue to me.
I believe there's someone standing towards the back of the room. My name is Sergei from Russia's public TV. This is a question for Mr. Miyazaki. In the previous interview, you mentioned about receiving a lot of influence from numerous overseas animators. And Norstein from Russia, I believe that's one of them. And if you will be able to talk a little bit more about what kind of influence you received from this Russian animator, that would be appreciated.
Norstein,
so Director Norstein, what kind of influence I got from him? Norstein is my friend, and it's someone that I would not like to lose against. Well, not that much. Quite, that might not be the word, but anyhow, he has continued to make works, and I believe that's one way to work. And I invited Takahata-san to join us, and he said that there is no way, so he declined. And I feel like Mr. Takahata would be the one that would continue to make films.
My name is Watanabe from Yomiuri newspaper. I have a question to Mr. Miyazaki. Up to this point, you've created many films, but if you were to pick one, which film are you what is your most favorite film? And throughout all your films, if there's any particular message that you wanted to convey through those films, if there's any consistent message, please share that with us. House moving castle is the one that gives me the biggest, strongest image. It's the world of the game, but I tried to make it into a drama. I tried to convert the world of the game into the drama, and I had to struggle a lot. Maybe the starting point was wrong, because I made this plan, so I had to work through it. A lot of children's literature influenced me to bringing me into this world. And there are different types of children's literature, but basically, I wanted to convey the message to the children that this life is worth living, and I think that is the basis of doing this work, and that has not changed.
Going on to the next question. My name is from I am from Italy's answer. So, Mr. Miyazaki, you created a lot of films based in Italy. Is it because you like Italy? That's my first question. And also, this is just my comment. Hato-san was 83, that's good, but Mr. Hirosawa, maybe it would be good if you would be able to target him. Then with that, you will be able to live another 20, 30 years. So I think it would be better that way. And also the Ghibli Museum, you are working as an executive director. Then I think the visitors would be happy if you would be able to work as an executive director leading the Ghibli Museum. I like Italy, first of all. It's great that there are some chaotic areas included into that as well. And also I have friends there. The food is great and the women are gorgeous. And they might be a bit scary, but still, I like Italy. And what was the second part of the question? You mentioned about Mr. Hando, and if I would be able to reach him in 10 years' time, and I just wish that I would be able to continue to work for another 10 years, but if I want to ask for more, I don't know how long Hando-san will be around, but Hando-san anyhow is 10 years ahead of us, and I hope that Hando-san will continue to walk in front of me. And also, if I become the director of the Ghibli Museum, rather than welcoming everyone that way, there are many items that's exhibited that's outdated and all that needs to be reworked as well. And or for example, it's fading. So I hope that I will be able to work on that. And that's something that I need to work on with my ink and paint. And so that's something that I would like to work on if there's time. And that's something that I have always wanted. I felt that I must do, and I would like to be able to do that. And the exhibit in the museum, it's cleaned every day, and it should be cleaned, but it fades as time goes by. So it looks like the colors are fading as time goes by. And if there's something that is glimmering in that fade, then all of a sudden that portion is going to be revived, and children would be attracted to that area. So in order to invigorate the museum, everyone needs to continue to work on bits and pieces of the museum. So that is something that I feel I must do.
じゃあ次の方、男性の方ですね。
My name is Kanazawa. I am a movie writer. I have a question to Mr. Miyazaki. The feature animation direction will be finished, but for the museum, in case of Mr. Miyazaki, I think you do short films as well. So I would like to understand whether you'll be involved in making short animations. And I have a question to Mr. Suzuki. And I think Studio Ghibli was established to create films by Mr. Takahata or by Mr. Miyazaki. And you have a new film being released next year. But Mr. Takahata is saying that this might be the last and the best. But if you consider that Mr. Miyazaki is retiring now, I would like to understand your future vision of Studio Ghibli from Mr. Suzuki. As it is written in my official retirement statement, I am free. I mean, whether I do it or not, I am free. I will not spend my brain on that. I've always wanted to do something else. I would like to start doing something else, and that is not an animation. Well, with regards to the second question, I think you wanted to ask what we're going to do as Studio Ghibli in the future. And once again, as I mentioned before, after the tale of the Princess Kaguya, I am involved in the next plan. And I am a little bit younger than Mr. Miyazaki, but I am 65 years old right now. And this old man, how long will he be involved is a question you might have. But the issue of Ghibli in the future is an issue of the people who work for Ghibli right now, and how they look at the future will determine what we'll do in the future, I think. For the future of Studio Ghibli, because there's no pressure from the top, I am expecting that the young people will deliver a lot of images from the young staff of wanting to do something. Without it, it's meaningless if Suzuki-san did something. When I was 30 years old or 40 years old, I had a lot of plans of a very strong determination of wanting to do something, and it really depends on whether the younger staff have that kind of determination. Suzuki-san will not reject that right away. So it really depends on the aspiration or the determination or the capabilities and competency of the staff.
はい、次の質問の方いらっしゃいますか。じゃあ一番奥のメガネの方。
And so the person that's wearing the glasses towards the back.
サンデー毎日の奥村隆です。
Takashi Okumura from Sunday Mainichi. So the wind rises. You mentioned this would be the last feature, Mr. Miyazaki. Are there any other feature film that you would have wanted to do but you were not able to do? Were there any plan like that? There are tons of things that I was not able to do, but there were reasons why we did not work on those. So there's no way that I would be able to answer to that and what kind of items were there, because there were reasons why we did not do. There are so many ideas that pops into my mind as to what would have happened, but that's not something that I should mention publicly.
他にいらっしゃいますか。じゃあその女性の方どうぞ。
My name is Koyanagi from Fuji TV Tokudane. In the earlier question, the director said, I am free, and you said you have something to do. But specifically, what exactly would you like to do? Can you share with us a little bit more in detail? And one more question from Japan. The director has communicated and sent out a lot of message from Japan to the overseas, and I think you're very valuable. And you have plans in the future of sending out any future of further messages in a different way to the world. Well, I have things to do, but if I weren't able to accomplish it, it would be embarrassing, so I will not mention what exactly this is. And I don't want to be a cultural person. I just want to be a pop working on the factory, and I want to continue doing that. So I have no intention of wanting to send out any messages. I am not a cultural person.
はい、次いらっしゃいますか。じゃあその女性の方ですね。
The next person, the lady there.
すみません。テレビ朝日の梅沢と申します。
My name is Umezawa from TV Asahi. So this is a question for Mr. Miyazaki.
改めてその当面はその休息を
So for the time being that you would be taking a break or you would be resting, so that would be prioritized. Is that correct? That's one question that I felt after reading the official retirement statement. And that's the first question. And the second, this is a question with regards to the wind rises. I saw it in the movie theater. And whether it be the nuclear accident or the Great East Japan earthquake, you made comments about those. So what you felt through the earthquake and the nuclear accident, did that have any impact to making your latest film, The Wind Rises?
風立ちぬの構想
The idea for The Wind Rises was not influenced by the earthquake nor the nuclear accidents. The idea existed before those incidents. I believe I mentioned this somewhere, but I believe the era caught up and it sped past us while we were making this film. And also when I mentioned about the break or the rest, my rest may not look like a rest or a break from the others. When I am working on something that I like, the work tends to become the rest or a break. If I'm just lying around taking a nap, that's tiring in times. So as a dream, I hope that I will be able to walk on my foot all the way down to Kyoto, but I might not be able to make it in the middle. Sometimes I dream of that, and I feel that that cannot be realized.
はい、じゃあ前の男性の方お願いいたします。
The gentleman at the front. My name is Hitomi from Asahi newspaper. In your answer, you mentioned that in The Wind Rises, the era caught up with you and it went ahead of you. But is that related to your retirement at this point? It's not related. Director of the animation, you probably don't understand what we do as a director of an animation. Although you're a director of an animation, we do work differently. And because I used to be an animator, I have to draw. I have to draw to be able to express myself. And what happens is that I have to take my glasses off and draw like this. And you have to do this forever. And no matter how you work out and keep your body conditions, it is very difficult to keep the concentration, and the concentration degrades year on year. And compared to Ponyo, I am leaving the desk 30 minutes earlier than before, and in the future I would have to leave the desk much earlier. And this problem that is occurring because of physical aging, you cannot avoid, and you can't be frustrated. I mean, you might say, why don't you do it different way? But if I were able to do it differently, I would be doing it already. And the only way to continue doing is the way I've always done it. So because that is difficult to do anymore, I will not be able to create any more feature animations.
A person in eyeglasses, please. My name is Shimizu, a freelance writer. So starting from the Castle of Cagliostro, and you ended in The Wind Rises. So that's your filmography. So you're destroying something and changing the world and making a difference in the world. Those are some of the themes. And there is a world of Japanese animation that is called the Cool Japan. So what are your thoughts on that? I must apologize, but to work means that I will live a life without watching any film or TV. I only listen to the radio a little bit in the morning, and I do flip through the newspapers, but I look at no media while I'm working. Surprisingly, I don't get in touch with any media. So Japanimation, where is it positioned? I have no idea. I truly don't know. And I will not be able to make any small talk without me knowing it. So I don't have any right to make any comment to that. When you become my age and work at the desk, I believe that you will be able to share what I'm feeling. It's something that I will not be able to mention. So, for example, there will be a couple of films that is being shown at the studio's film theater. I would be stepping out in the middle because it is better that I work rather than watching the film to the end. So it might be respectable, but I believe because of myself being that kind of a person, I believe now is the time to take a step away.
My name is Kosue from GG Press. You're making this statement for your retirement. In the past, film directors who had left without making this declaration, but why? What was the biggest reason why you decided to make this declaration for your retirement? Well, I didn't mean to make a declaration for the retirement. I just mentioned that I will be retiring to my staff, and as a result of that, from the producer, they asked me whether we should be responding to all the requests for press interviews, and it would be very difficult if he had to respond to them individually, and I said I should do it at my atelier. But we decided that there were too many press members to fit into the atelier, and this fifth studio having a meeting room, and that was not big enough to the press conference, so therefore we ended up doing this press conference here. But because we were doing this press conference, we needed some material. That is why we wrote this official retirement statement. And when I showed this to the producer, he said it was good, and he suggested that we should take copies, and that is why we distributed this. But I had no intention of doing an event like this.
Next question. I believe there's someone that's raising a hand. My name is Yama from ASP. telecommunications, and this is for Suzuki-san and Miyazaki-san. So if you will be able to have this answered by Suzuki-san first and then Miyazaki-san, that we appreciate it. There is a business success and aesthetics success both for your film. So with regard to the style of the Miyazaki film, would you, Mr. Suzuki, express this as a producer? And also with regard to the Miyazaki films, if you will be able to talk a little bit about the impact that the Miyazaki film had for the Japanese film industry, that would be appreciated. If you will be able to give us a comment on that, that would be appreciated.
ですね、なんて言うんだろう。
Well,
いやまあこれ言い訳かもしれないですけ
this
どね。
might sound like an excuse.
そういうことあんまり考えないようにしてるんですよね。
We're trying not to
俺どうし
think
てかっていうと、
about that
そういうふうにものを見ていくと
intentionally, because if we have that kind of a perspective, then we will not be able to get the work at hand done.
現実には
So realistically,
宮崎駿作品に関わったのは
I've been involved from Nausicaa on the Hayao Miyazaki
先ほ
films.
ど申し上げたように約30年間
And it's been about 30 years since then, and I've continued to run. And at the same time, there was no time in which that we looked back into the past films. And I felt that that was because that was how we should keep on continue to work. So how the work is done, how the film is made. There are times in which that I give it a thought, but we try not to. And also, all of the films that we've been involved in, what kind of an impact it had to the world? Well, I intentionally try not to think about that. I don't know if this becomes an answer for your question, but that's my answer.
全く僕も考えていませんでした。
I've never given a thought to that either.
再三分岐点にたどり着い
So
たって聞いた
there
らよ
were
かった。
whenever I would, sometimes I would be reaching
次の質問いらっしゃいますか。
decision point, and I would feel like it was good, and that's
前
it.
の女性の方のお願いいたします。
The lady at the front.
フランステレビのかゆきと申します。
My name is Kayaki from France TV. You mentioned that you like Italy.
フランスはいかがでしょう
But
か。
how do you feel about France? France.
正直に言いますね。
To be honest,
イタリア料理の方が口に合います。
Italian food is tastier for me.
クリスマスにたまたまフランスに
At the time of Christmas, I
行っ
had
た時にですね、どこのレストランに入っても
something to do at Christmas time and went to France. And everywhere I go, I was fed with foie gras. And that was quite tough.
ルーブルは良かったですよ。
The Louvre was very
いいとこがいっ
good.
ぱいあります。
There are many good things about France,
ありますけど、
but
料理はイタリアの方が好きだ。
I like Italian food better.
そんな大した問題と思わないでください。
It's not a very big problem, I hope.
フランスの友人に
A friend in
イ
France
タリアの飛行艇じゃなくてフランスの飛行艇の映画を作れと言われたんですけど、
asked me to make a film about France airship.
そういう話をしたこと記憶ありますけど、
I remember that that might not be a good idea, but
ポ
France,
ール・グリモーっていう人がですね、王と鳥
there's
とい
this
う名前
person
になってます
called
が、
Paul
昔
Grimore.
は、闇に闇の暴君っていう形で完成形ではなかったけれども、日本って1950
In
年代に公開されてですね、
1954, there was a film called Yabuniramin Bokun, and that gave a strong impact.
僕よりも5つ先輩の高畑監督
And
の世
Mr.
代には
Takahata, who is 5 years older than me, I think this film gave a significant impact, directed by Mr. Paul Grimore, and I have not forgotten anything about that. And even when I watch this film
世界
again,
の作り方については本当に感動
his
します。
aspiration and the way he creates the world is something moves me very much.
自分はアニメーターをやっていこうというふうに決めたわけです。
Well, several movies gave me a trigger to made me become an animator, and the movies that are created by France gave me more impact. Of course, there are movies that are created in Italy, but that did not make me feel that I should become an
次の質
animator.
問をお願いいたします。それではそちらの男性。
The gentleman there. My name is Satake from AP. And thank you very much for everything, Mr. Miyazaki. So you entered the Toei in 1963, and it's been 50 years. And every single day you must have been thinking about animations, and you were working at your desk every day. So in retrospect, what was the toughest thing? And what was the best thing about making these films? The toughest, well, schedule. All of the film, the schedule was the toughest. And also, I've never made any film in which that I knew how it would end. Meaning that we started off working on a film without knowing how it will reach its conclusion. So that was tough every single time. That's the only way I can word it. And I personally felt that if there was any work that we already knew of how it ends, then it's not something that I should work on. So that's how I started working on the plannings or the scripts. And with regards to the storyboarding, I was writing the storyboarding like in a newspaper, or maybe not a newspaper, but maybe a monthly magazine periodicals. So every single staff had no idea how this film would conclude, and I'm grateful for the perseverance for sticking around with us. And I guess that was the toughest part for me. But in the 1.5 years or the 2 years time, thinking about it and continuing to think about it was meaningful for me. And also all of the cuts and the piece of works, and when it comes up, and while we are going to be working on it, saying that this may not work and this may not work, and going through this discussion will lead to a deeper understanding of the film. And with that understanding, we'll be able to think about what's going to be happening next. And so it wasn't all too productive as a process, but it was a tough process to go through. We would be working, coming over to the studio, thinking about what would be happening. And out of the 50 years, I don't know how many years were spent like that, but that was my working days.
What was the best thing being a director of the animation? I never thought it was really good becoming a director, but I always thought it was really worthwhile becoming animator. An animator, if you could draw a really simple cut, or if you were able to draw the wind or the way you were expressing the light, if you're able to draw it really well, it makes you happy for 2-3 days. Even minimum, you could be happy for 20-30 minutes. But the director needs to wait for the judge at the end. It's not very good for your health. So at the time of the animator, well, I had always been an animator until the end, but I think this job of being an animator really fit me. Any other question?
Gentleman there? My name is Ota from Asahi Newspaper. You mentioned about it was good, worthwhile to become an animator, but you never felt once that it was good to become a director. But having said that, you've continued to work as a director. Why? Simple reason. We had Isao Takahata. And it wasn't about the company, and we met at the labor union office, and we've talked for an extended amount of time. And as a result, I don't know how long we've spent talking before we started to work, but we talked about so many different topics during that time. And it may not be worth talking about this, but the first time we worked together, I believe Heidi was the first work in which that I had been able to show my capability as well. At that time, we both did not need any discussion at all, because we knew what each other was thinking when the plan was presented. And if a director, if there is going to be a delay in the schedule, it will be reprimanded coming out to the office. And Isao Takahata was writing a lot of reports about the reason why there was a delay. But I thought that I would rather not become a director. I'd rather be working on the animations and the music and anything else. I've never been trained, and I had no idea. So, at a certain time, when I was told to become a director, I was clueless. When I was told that I have to go into a meeting with a musician, I had no idea what I was supposed to talk about. I only said that let's do our best. And so what would be happening with regard to the story and how would it end? And all I can answer was, I have no idea. So I wasn't the person who aspired to become a director. It just so happened to be that way. And there were many times in which that Mr. Takahata helped me through this process. So all the way until the wind rises, I kept on being confused about how I should become the filmmaker or the director. The music meeting that I've mentioned, the only thing that I would be able to say is that, I've heard this before. I've heard this music before. Or if someone is going to be saying that this is a good CD and would this work? And all I can say is, oh, this is Wagner. So this was the kind of a person, but I was Takahata-san's training and my training, who I thought that I would be an animator, that was very different. And when I was going through the directors, I thought I was almost working like an animator, so there were many difficulties, I'm sure. And for that, the producer supported me a lot. For someone that doesn't watch TV and watch the films, I have no idea what kind of talent exists, and I would forget about everything that I might know as well either. So I think it was a teamwork and a relationship, and because of everyone around me, I had been able to work until today. I wasn't a director who would be standing alone and would be working till the end isolated. I would be receiving a lot of help and support from everyone around.
One more question. You raised the name of Mr. Takahata, but with regards to the tale of the Princess Kaguya, and I'm sure I haven't seen it yet. Okay. I asked him to join me at the table today, but he said no. And I thought that he would continue doing the direction of the movies.
And the next person, a lady there. My name is Mieno from Weekly Shincho, and I have a question with regard to the Wind Rises. So this is going to be the last feature film. So the last dialogue after Mr. Suzuki mentioned about that because you came and I've lived, and I believe that became something that was different. So would this work become something that you would not be regretting? And with regard to the change made to the last line, what are your thoughts on that? With regard to the ending of The Wind Rises, I did talk back to it, and the reason for that is that there is a girl called Sankichi, and right now she is on a pregnancy leave, but she is very intimidating, and when I'm working with other staff, and there is going to be a new piece of note saying that make it 10 minutes, and so there will be numerous support words, etc. all over the studio for me anyhow, but we needed to be able to create and finalize the storyboard well, so we will not be able to see it to the end. So there were numerous pending items, and I had been cornered because I had to, with all of these pending state in the storyboarding. And even if the storyboarding is done, the line can be changed, or dialogue can be changed, and that's why we went through some of these changing processes. And this may not be meaningless, but that the last field. Where is that? And I had a hypothesis that would be a world that doesn't exist here. And I have a feeling that the Capricornian Jiro has already passed away and is meeting once again there. And Naoko is a Beatrice. So she would be saying that, don't be lost and please come over this way. And I got confused when she started to say that, and that's why I decided not to go in that direction. And by doing that, I believe that it became easier to understand. And I read Dante, and I shouldn't have read the Dante, the Inferno.
はい、次いらっしゃいますか。では、その左側の方です。
The person to the left.
My
name is Seo from the Mainichi newspaper. I have a question to Mr. Miyazaki. Well, in the world of feature animations, were you able to express all the sense of the world that you wanted to create? And are you fulfilled? I mean, if you have any regrets, what were your regrets in creating the sense of the world? I have not come to a conclusion on that or come to a summary on that. I think it would be difficult if I did not do my best, but I always thought that I had done my best. So once it was completed, that was it. And I know what did not work, and that would not go away all of a sudden without any effort. So I tried not looking back. And well, I will not do the same thing over, but people tell me that I've done the same thing over and over again, but I always tried not to do the same thing over and over again. Is that answering your question?
はい、じゃあ次の方お願いいたします。じゃあその男性の方ですかね。
And a gentleman there. My name is Koga from Japan Nihon Keizai newspaper, and this is a question for Mr. Miyazaki. So you were in the middle of the 40s when you found the Studio Ghibli. And since then, how did the Japanese society change? What are your thoughts on that? That's my first question. And the second is that you mentioned about your 70s being ending. So how would you like to make? What kind of the latter half of the 70s would you like to be able to achieve? When I founded Ghibli, when I think about the state of Japan back then, it was a day in which the Japan had become an economic country, and Japan is number one. Japan has become big, and everyone was in that happy mood. And I was frustrated about that. And unless I was frustrated, I wouldn't be making Nausicaa. And Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and the Castle of the Sky, the Totoro, and the Kiki's Delivery Service. Well, the economy might be in its upturn, but what is actually happening? So those are some of my thoughts. But the USSR went away in 1985, and the Japanese bubble burst after that as well. And during that time, and I personally thought that there won't be any war, but now the Yugoslavia went into a conflict. So a lot of things changed in the history of the world. So in there was a time in which that we will not be able to make a film an extension of the past work. And at that time, I wanted to be able to make the pig into the protagonist, and Takahata has made a raccoon into a protagonist, and we tried to maneuver our way through. And after that, we went into a downturn. So the last 10 years became the last 20 years, and Mr. Hando mentioned that it is going to become the last 25 years, and I believe that that would happen. So when the economy is in its upturn, at that time, the bubble burst and that stuck, and that created the image of the Ghibli. And after that, while we were going through struggling, we made Princess Mononoke, and we made other films as well during this downturn. And up until the wind rises, the Japanese situation was going on a downturn, and we were all wondering where we are headed for while we were working on this. But if it goes on too long, then the hook, since Nausicaa, maybe it will not work as a hook anymore and everything might be collapsing. And I know that I am not talking straight, but when I talked with Kazutoshi Hando, I truly understood this. Everything going down and tumbling it down, it's not just about my friends, but all of the younger staffs that we've been working together and the children that at the nursery next to us. Everyone is living next to myself. So I would try to be able to keep my back straight, and I hope that we will be able to live like Mr. Hando is living.
はい、次いらっしゃいますか。じゃあ
Next question. I'm from China Business Channel. My name is Cho. First of all, on behalf of the fans of Ghibli in China, I have a question. In the future, do you have any possibility of releasing Ghibli's films in China? I should ask Mr. Hoshino to take this question. As you know, China has a quota on releasing foreign films, and with the deregulation, the number of films that can be released in China is increasing, and I understand that. But in that perspective, a full-scale flow of releasing Japanese films is not really established in China. Of course, we are proactively considering this, but at this point, our films are not yet released in China. I have two more questions. Mr. Miyazaki is respected by many people, but in contrast, I would like to ask you, which films or which directors do you like? As I mentioned before, I don't watch current movies that are recently released. Norstein is a friend, and Pixar's Last Sister is a friend, and Aardman and Laster are friends. They're not competitors, they're just friends. And I don't watch recent movies at all. I apologize, I really don't watch recent movies. So I can't comment on that. I will be watching Mr. Takahata's film, but it would be very rude to peek, so I will try not to peek yet.
次に質問いらっしゃいますか。じゃあ一番向こうの女性の方ですかね。はい。すいません。
And a woman, the next question, the lady in the back.
日本テレビ ZIP の加藤ゆりと申します。
My name is Yuri Kato from the Nippon TV ZIP. In The Wind Rises, Mr. Anno, who might be, and you also have Mr. Alpert, who you have a deep relationship with, that is appearing as a voice talent in your film. So, any thoughts on that? What did you think about casting these members? I'm sure that people don't know this, but meaning that watching a lot of films, a lot of TVs, they may not notice this. Maybe they're only watching something that's dubbed, but well, I commute between Saitama and Tokyo. And again, I don't watch film, I don't watch TV. And within my mind, what I remember is, especially for The Wind Rises, is that the Japanese film during the black and white days, film days, those are some of the works that's done maybe before 1960s. And under a dark, dim light, the younger generations and the men and the women are striving to make a living. So that's what I remember. And when I hear the talent talk of these days, there is a big gap. I am amazed about the lack of presence of the latest ones. So whether it be Stephen Alpert and Mr. Anno, it's all about the sense of presence. So I know it would have been tough for them, but for myself, I thought their voice will fit perfectly. It's not that the other talents were not good. For example, Naoko's voice talents, she became Naoko herself, and I was astonished about her becoming an embodiment of her. So this Wind Rises, it's a Dolby sound, but it's not Dolby. So there won't be any surround sounds and also the wow sounds. We're not going to be collecting 20 people or 30 people. We had the music director, the sound director said that there were only 2 persons involved, meaning that in the past films, there's only one microphone for the particular protagonist. So no matter how much people are around them, it did not appear. It ended up in the film. So that's the correct way. When it became 24 channels, there were so many voice tracks, and it is going to be dispersed all over the place. There might be a lot of information, but the expression itself has become vague because of there being too much. And that's why I thought, well, while I was working on some of the short films for the museum, this was something that was tried. And I thought that it can work for a feature film as well. And our producer did not hesitate and gave me a green light on that, and that I was really happy about that. And also with regards to the sound directors, they had the same concern, and we were able to resolve that by doing this. And I don't think that happens frequently. It only happens. It's rare that it happens, and I was very happy for that. And a lot of the person in charge of their own departments, whether it be the backgrounds or the colors, or the animation checks. There were numerous sections, and everyone at the administration, and Mr. Hisaishi, the music composer. There were issues, but still, we were all able to feel like everything was completed, and that is rare as well. And in the past ones, there were always something that we felt left undone, but for this one, we felt that we were all satisfied with what we had done. I mentioned that I feel like these are the staff that has gathered for my funeral, but there were many staffs that has joined us for this film for the first time in 20 years or 30 years. But I believe that we have been able to end this experience as something that is very satisfying, and I feel very fortunate for being able to do that.
I'm from Hong Kong iCable TV. My name is Lau. Ponyo was released in Hong Kong 5 years ago, but before that, I have done an interview with you. And 5 years ago, compared to now, I feel that you have lost a lot of weight since compared then. It might be a bit years. What is your health like? Is it because you lost weight because you were so busy working? To be accurate, I weigh 63.2 kilograms. 50 years ago, when I became an animator, I weighed 57 kilograms. And the reason why it exceeded 60 kilograms is because I got married and I started eating 3 times a day. And at one point, my weight exceeded 70 kilos. And I would see my photo back then. It looks really ugly and it looks like a pig. And in order to make films, I have to watch my health. So I stopped eating outside. And I try to eat a solid breakfast, and I bring a lunchbox made by my wife, and I will go home and eat dinner at home. But I will not eat rice and just eat the main meal. And I realized that that was not hard. And I came to this weight. So I don't know, this was a conspiracy by my wife, or is it because of a corporation by my wife, but I think this is good. And I am hoping that I can pass away by weighing 57 kilograms. It would be really good if I could go back to my weight at the starting point to pass away. And of course, I have a lot of health problems. But there are many people who cares about me, and they make me do things, so I just follow them. And I think I should be okay. Is that answering your question? So you're saying that you're healthy right now? When you make one film, you would be very stressed out. And when you keep walking, the health will improve. But this summer was way too hot. Even in Kamikochi, it was really hot. I thought it was cursed. And I'm not walking enough yet. If I walk a little bit more, I think I'll be more healthier.
じゃあその手前の女性の方よろしいですか。
My name is Akaiwa from the weekly Kinyobi. I have two questions. The first one is for Mr. Miyazaki. You mentioned about a pop at a factory. So you, through the NEPU produced by Ghibli, you talked about there is no way of making revision to the constitution. So what are the reasons why you decided to send out such a message? And the second question is for Mr. Hoshino. So Miyazaki-san is mentioned as Japan's Disney, and I feel that he is the one and only. So you, Mr. Hoshino, you are from Disney, and you have the tenure both at the Disney and Ghibli as an experience. So what do you feel about that expression? So I received the interview from NEPU, and I've frankly posed what I feel as an opinion. And I wish that I should have thought it out better and gave a good talk, but I talked frankly, and that's how it ended up being an article, and I have no intention of making any corrections to that article. And if I'm asked, would I continued to send out this message? Well, I am not a cultural person, so I would like to keep my comment within the realm of what I am capable of. And the second question, I believe, was for Mr. Hoshino. Well, to be called the Japanese Disney, that's not something that Miyazaki came up with, and that was in 2008 in a public space. There was an answer given by Mr. Miyazaki when there was a question posed from a foreign correspondent. Now, Disney was a producer, and in my mind, I have a producer, meaning that would be the Suzuki-san. And Walt Disney has a lot of talented creators. It's called 9 Old Men. It's 9 animators. They're all famous, and it's very famous, and they have a very talented people in Disney. In retrospect, I am not Disney, so he's mentioned that clearly. And myself, I was at Disney for 20 years, and I learned about Disney's history, and I personally feel that he is quite different. So I don't think that he can be regarded as a Japanese Disney. I understand that you mentioned everything, and NEPU.
それはですね、鈴木プロデューサーがですね、中日新聞なんです。
I believe that was a Chunichi newspaper. He talked about the Constitution. Suzuki-san talked about the Constitution, and there were numerous threats over the internet sent to Mr. Suzuki after that. And I'm sure it was a joke, but I said that be careful of your back because you might be stabbed from the back when you're on a train. So if Suzuki-san is being stabbed, then I will not be able to ignore that. And I decided that I should talk. And on the same note, it would be good if Takahata-san is going to be making a comment as well. And if there's going to be 3 people that's mentioning the same thing, then it would be difficult for the someone that's against us to target one of them. And it seems like someone that sent a threat was arrested, but I don't know about the detail.
Any other questions? My name is Ito from Fuji TV. I have a question to Mr. Miyazaki. In your films or in your comments, you said that you have 10 years time, so you need to do your best. But when you look back, when you say 10 years, which 10 years are you talking about? And can you give us a reason for that? And the other question is that it was mentioned in your official retirement statement, but for the coming 10 years will be looked at. And what do you look forward to? What kind of coming 10 years, next decade, would you want it to be? Mr. Yoshihota, that I respect, in his essay in his later years, talked about the Bible. Well, he wrote in the book of the in the Ecclesiastics, and there's this word saying that in the Old Testament, and you need to do your best. And if Yoshihota writes it, it feels like it's rewritten so that even a not so capable person like me can understand. And I have that book in my hand. When you say 10 years, a decade, that was not what I came up with. When you start drawing pictures, you reach your limit when you're 38. And I was told that people pass away when you reach your limit at about 38 years old. And that was my mentor. And that's why I thought it's about 10 years. I started learning drawing pictures when I was 18. And that was my image when I mentioned 10 years. And before I became a director, animation was peeking into the secrets of the world, like the wind or the movement or the expressions of the eyesight or the muscles of the people. And in those parts, you can feel that the secrets of the world can be felt. And that was the type of the job that I was doing. And as a result of that, the work was so profound, and I thought this was worth doing at some point. And it started becoming really complex because I had to direct film. But I can recall that decade. At that time, I feel that I was really doing my best. It's really worthless or meaningless to mention it now. But for the coming decade, I think it'll go past really quickly. Because it's been more than 10 years since I established my museum. I thought that was only a little while ago. So I think the time will elapse much quicker. That's my view. Thank you.
はい、他に質問ありますか。それではそちらの女性ですか。
Next question.
すみません、フジテレビの新沼と申します。
My name is Ninuma from Fuji TV.
宮崎監督にご質問させ
This
てい
is
た
a
だきたいん
question
ですけ
for
れども、
Mr. Miyazaki.
2つありまして、
I have two questions.
1つは今回
The first
決定された
is
という
that
ことを奥様にどのような言葉で
how did you communicate about your determination to retire to your wife? And what did your wife respond to that? That's my first question. And the second is,
このアニメーションを通じて
you mentioned at the beginning that through animation, you wanted to be able to relate to the children that this life is worth living. Within several decades of animation production, and I believe that the definition for this has changed. So right now we're in 2013. What kind of hope that do you have, and what kind of anguish do you have for the world of 2013? And how would you define this world of 2013 today? First of all, to my wife, I mentioned about this retirement, and I said that I related to the staff, and I said that, but I need your bento boxes, your lunch box every day, like we've always done. And she said, she thinks, she's always been saying that there is no wife that continues to make lunch boxes every day at this age. I don't remember if she said that exactly like that, but that's the sense. I've been reformed to not be able to take eating out. I went to a ramen store the other day, and it was so salty, I was surprised. So I've been eating something with less salt these days for the past couple of decades. Anyway, about this life worth living, about that question, your second question. Well, there is an English juvenile literature writer, Robert Westwood, and in his Westall's works, there are many things. His work is filled with something that I should think about, what we should think about. He says like the world is bad, but there's this line like this: to live in this world, you are too good, and that is not a praise. What they're saying is that if you're like that, you will not be able to survive in this world. And I was moved with that. It's not me that's sending out the message, I'm receiving it. It doesn't have to be a literature, but there might be some article or some film that I watched way in the past. I've taken it and received it, so it's not something that I came up with. I've been told that this world is worth living, and people might wonder if it is really true. And I've continued to inherit that type of idea from my predecessor.
My name is Tanaka from the Yomiuri newspaper. I have a question to Mr. Suzuki. Earlier you mentioned briefly that the timing of the announcement of the retirement was at Venice Film Festival during the press conference. And can you tell us the reason why you decided this timing to make this announcement? At Venice, there was a request to participate at the film festival, and that was actually a very short notice, and internally we made the announcement, and we had already decided about the schedule of making this press conference today, and after we made that decision on the schedule, we were requested to participate at the Venice Film Festival, and I talked to Mr. Hoshino, and Mr. Miyazaki has a lot of friends overseas. And Venice, if we make this announcement there, I need to be careful with my wording, but we decided that we can make an announcement at once. Originally, we were thinking of doing this. I mean, we said that we would make the announcement about the retirement and then do the press conference. Initially, we were thinking of doing it in Tokyo after sending you facts about the announcement, but coincidentally, this participation into Venice came up, and we had to have someone participating from Ghibli. And if we made the announcement there, a lot of procedures could be reduced. That was it. That was the only reason. participating at the Venice Film Festival. I heard that officially for the first time from Mr. Suzuki today. I mean, Hoshino-san, Mr. Hoshino-san said, yeah. And I was really surprised to hear that Venice by Hoshino-san. I didn't even know that he was there.
質問ありますか。それではですね、その腕章されている女性の方です。
Lady wearing the wristband, armband.
I'm
from Toyama. I am from the Kita Nihon Broadcasting. My name is Oshizawa. There has been some literature writers, and Yoshie Hota is from Toyama Prefecture. And you read his writing since you were a student and you like it. And within the Wind Rises, to live, are you living your fullest or we must live? So those are some of the messages included into the Wind Rises. The Wind Rises, which is the accumulation of everything, every history in the past. Are there any message from Hotta that you've inherited that's included into the Wind Rises? Well, we can't make any film trying to include your own message. I think that there is a reason why we're going down this path, but we will not be able to think of it from the beginning. And if we try to think of it from the beginning, then we would be lost. So we don't have any reason but to be lost into that quagmire. But at the end, we do have to conclude the film. If we don't have to conclude the film, and that would be easiest, but we must conclude it. And also, no matter how long, it will be 2 hours max. So there will be fewer and fewer time limited within this feature film. And so this line, we must live. Well, Mr. Suzuki actually took that from the last word of Nausicaa, and he decided to write this, we must live, on the poster that's bigger than what I wrote, the Wind Rises word. So he made that word bigger. But people tend to think that I am the one that's screaming, we must live, but it's not really me that's screaming out that message. Including that as well, though, how we should promote and how it should be promoted on an all-Japan basis, that's Suzuki-san's job, and he is giving it all he got, and it's all in his hand. So all of a sudden, without me knowing, someone was in Venice, and before that, I believe that I was invited with Mr. Takahata to go to the film festival, and there's another Korean film festival, and we've been invited. We've heard about all of that. I've never heard of the Venice until now. And Suzuki-san is saying, oh, did I really not mention that? And I've made a comment. You've sent out a comment about the Venice. You did. You mentioned about liking Lido Isle. Yes, I do like Lido Isle. I remember that. The Lido Isle and Caproni, well, the grandson of Caproni, he's called Itaro Caproni. And he just so happened that when he saw Porco Rosso, the Caproni company's chassis, or actually the company history booklet, which included the designs and the construction drawings of the airplanes, and it was a very big, thick book. And I believe there's only one in Japan. And this book was sent out from Italy, which was written by his grandfather, and in Italian, it said that if you like this, I would send this to you. And I did answer back saying, thank you very much for this company history book. And initially, I thought that I was only able to watch the exterior, but with this book, I was able to take a look at the construction of the airplanes by going through this book. Compared to American, they were using lumbers in terms of the engineering, but what they tried to create, they're trying to do something that was thought up by Romans. And that's what I thought. So she's called the Gianni Caproni. The Gianni Caproni, the designer. If we think of him as a Renaissance man, then I can understand, meaning that there is no economic foundation in order to run an airplane company. He would still try to be able to build, and that is included into the aeronautics history. And that's why I fell in love with Mr. Caproni. And that became one of the triggers to make The Wind Rises. So there were so many accumulations of elements. So it's not that I tried to make a film based on the theme that's bubbling in myself. It's all accumulation. For example, one book that was sent out of the blue from Italy, that happened a long time ago. So there were a lot of seeds, different seeds. And as time goes by, it became a material to be made into a film. And again, for Yoshie Hotta, within numerous works, you refer, I felt that you referred to the literatures of Hotta. I personally feel that because I am from the Toyama Prefecture as well. So for you, Mr. Miyazaki, what do you think? Any comments or thoughts about the writer Yoshie Hotta? I mentioned about the economy booming and then it's becoming sluggish and dragging on. I make it sound like I understand, but there were many times in which that I was confused and didn't know where we were headed for. And before Porco Rosso, it was difficult for us to read where the world is heading for. And at that time, Hotta, it's a very short essay, but there will be something that is written by him that comes into my hand that I would read through. So I have an intention of heading to one way or another, but when I get confused and gets lost, and when I read Hotta's work, then he is always standing firm. And it was amazing. And with that, I was able to reaffirm my position and my standing as well. And for example, Hotta might be writing that the nation might be going away so all of a sudden. And those all helped myself out. And I feel like I owe a lot to his work. And I still think so as well.
We are running out of time, so we would like to make this the last question.
My name is Osaka from Toyo Keizai. I have a question to Mr. Miyazaki. The earlier films were announced or released every 2-3 years, but it's been 5 years since your last film. In addition to the reason for age, is there any other reason? I mean, is there any factors that required so much more time in making your next film? I've made some films once every year in the past. Nausicaa is a little bit different, but Nausicaa and Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service and Castle in the Sky, we had accumulation of a lot of ideas before we started directing, and if there was an exit, we were able to release it. But after that, we had to look for the ideas to make a film about. So that is why it started to take longer to make films. And also at the beginning, the Castle of Cagliostro took me 4 months to make. Of course, I put in my best and cut down on my sleep. And if you push myself, we were able to make films in 4 or 5 months. But at the time, the staff was younger, and there was a group of animators who said that making feature film would be a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and they were really dedicated. But you can't demand them to do the same forever. You get older, and you would have your family, and there are more people who were asked by their family about, are you going to choose the family or the work? And there were some who choose both. But
そういうわけでどうしても時間がかかるようになったんです。
Well, because of that, it started to take longer to make films, and at the same time, if I spend 12 hours or 14 hours a day drawing pictures, were anymore. I mean, I can only spend 7 hours drawing. And apart from that, I'll be talking or eating. And having meetings and doing briefings and giving instructions is not really part of my work. My work is really about sitting at the desk and drawing, and it's really a matter of how many hours I can spend drawing. And when you reach my age, there are many moments where you can't stand anymore. And what I do is just put my pencil down and just go home. I gave up finishing the work I was working on. I would just stop. I would just give it up and just go home. But still, I think I really reached my limit. So I think I can't go any further. And well, people, if we ask me, why don't you rely on someone else to do the job? That's not how I do it. I mean, if I could rely on someone else to do my job, I would have done it much before. Well, you asked me how it took me 5 years, but during the time I would decide a policy and came up with a plan and came up with a scenario. But still, it took me 5 years to make this film, The Wind Rises. And how I live my life after The Wind Rises is really an issue of Japan. And this young boy came to visit me. And Jiro walks down the hill with Capelloni, and this boy mentioned that he was really scared to consider what would be waiting for them after at the bottom of the hill. And I was very surprised about that kind of comment. But I think I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how I felt. Thank you very much. That concludes our Q&A session. And lastly, once again, I would like to have Mr. Miyazaki to give a final comment.
I didn't expect this many people to join us. Thank you very much for all of your support for an extended amount of time, and this will never happen again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes Studio Ghibli's press conference. Thank you very much for coming today.